Okay, good morning, everyone. Hopefully everyone can hear me. So welcome to our first virtual meeting of the Upper Thames River Conservation. Prepared and able to connect in okay. We're still working with Joe, so hopefully we can get Joe online in a minute or two. Hopefully everyone else is ready to go and comfortable, and hope you're all wearing your most glamorous sweatpants, and we'll get started. Our chair, Sandy Levin, has a conflict this morning, so he's asked me to do the meeting anyway, so just be aware that Sandy is going to be here for part of the meeting. So thank you, everyone, for being part of this, and thanks for all the training we did last week and working with staff. Thank you to all the staff for getting this up and running. It's, as you can see, there's anything can go wrong, and there's all kinds of things to deal with. So we've had lots to contend with there. Just a reminder that Chris Harrington is the host. If you have any problems, just try and get a hold of us. Michelle did send out an email with Chris's phone number, so you can get a hold of Chris if you're having difficulties, and hopefully everything runs smoothly. We won't have to worry about it. Just a couple quick reminders. Remember to mute your microphone if you're not speaking. Try to have your participant and your chat windows open. Remember to use the raised hand feature if you want to ask a question or make a comment. There's a few of us that are trying to keep an eye out for those raised hands, so hopefully we don't miss anybody. We'll try to keep on top of that. And a reminder that all of the votes will be done with a roll call. So Michelle will be calling the roll, and we need to have everybody cast a vote. That way it's on the record, and we have the recording, and that way it's clear as to making sure who all voted and how many votes we have cast. And of course, this will all be on the Upper Thames YouTube channel afterwards. So it's part of our requirement to have public viewing and disclosure to the public so that they can watch our proceedings. So our First Nations tutorial greeting. We will begin today by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is traditional territory of the Adirondack, the Shinabeg, and the Haudenosaunee and Luanpewak peoples. We have a long-standing relationship to the land, water, and region of southwestern Ontario. The local First Nation communities of this area include the Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, the Munsee Delaware Nation, and the Delaware Nation of Moraviantown. In the region, there are 11 First Nation communities and a growing Indigenous urban population. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and of all the original peoples of Turtle Island. The next item I have here is regrets, and we have regrets this morning from Don Edmonston. And as I did mention, Sandy is with us, but he may have to pop out later on. So with that, let me just check my notes here. I think the next thing we need to do is to get Michelle to call the roll, please, and we'll take attendance.
Okay, we'll start from the top. Marie Blosh.
I am here.
Alan Dale.
Yes, I'm present.
Anna Hopkins.
Yes.
Tony Jackson.
Present.
Sandy Levin.
Yes.
Nancy Manning.
I'm here.
Hugh McDermott. Hugh. I
Hugh
see.
is waving.
Yeah, I see his
You
hand.
might,
waving
you
there.
might have his mute button still on. If you have your
Yep.
mute, remember to take your mute off when you go to speak.
There, okay, for some reason it didn't go off right away.
Paul Mitchell,
Present.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes, I'm here.
Brian Petrie,
Present.
Jim Ruffle,
Here.
Joe Salter, I think, is still trying to connect. I can see him, but I see he's on the phone. Mark Schadenberg,
Here.
Alex Westman,
Here.
oh, I skipped over Don Edmondson, but Don Edmondson, who we know is not here.
Is that the whole list, Michelle?
That's it.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, we're all set then. Just Don we're missing, and we're missing Joe temporarily. Okay, just a quick reminder, we have 2 meetings today, but the first one is our regular board meeting. So, first motion we have for that meeting is a motion to approve the agenda. Move that the board of directors approve the agenda as posted. And we have a mover for Marie Blosh and seconded by Brian Petrie. Are the mover and seconder okay with that motion?
Yes,
I am.
from Marie.
Yes, from Brian.
Good, thank you. And I don't see any hands up. If there's nobody, any comments or questions? If not, I'm going to call for the vote and ask Michelle to take the vote for this motion.
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Ruffle,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
and Alan Dale.
Yes. All right.
I'm just going to weigh in for a
motion-
second. It's Chris. Sorry, just to solve Joe's problem, we can't get it working through his tablet. So he is on the phone with me, which is leaning against my computer. So he's hearing you through the speakers on my computer, through his phone, back to the microphone to you guys. So that's how you're hearing him. So it's not a glamorous solution, but it's all we can do at the moment.
Well, thanks, Chris. It seemed to work. We could hear Joe loud and clear, so that's good. So motion's carried. Next item for the agenda, declarations of conflict of interest. Anybody have any?
Ellen, I don't have I've got a bit of a conflict with the in-camera item. I just want to make sure I'm not seen as being biased in any way, but I serve on the board with the individual named in the report. So I'm going to recuse myself from the in-camera session.
Okay, good. Thank you, Sandy. We'll note that. Anyone else? Okay, hearing nothing. Next item we have the bylaw amendments to allow electronic meetings during municipal or provincial declared emergencies. Moved by Anna Hopkins and seconded by Tony Jackson. The mover and second are okay with making that motion?
I am. I do have a question, though, Alan, if I may. And that's about meetings open to the public and delegation. So I understand that we will do the teleconference now the same way it will be posted after the meeting for the public to view? Will that process be the same? And how will delegations work? Any different to how we've done it in the past? I guess that is probably through you, Mr. Chair, to staff, if someone can just confirm how the process will work.
Okay, okay. Are you okay, Tony, with seconding
Yes.
that motion?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine. Yeah.
I'm going to get Ian or Tracy to answer Anna's question here.
Yeah, I will start with the first half. Tracy, you can take this. Public participation requirement. I mean, our normal board meeting, the public's allowed to attend and view. And that's why we are recording this whole video, and it will be posted on YouTube, our YouTube channel. So I see that as no different.
Here's what I found.
When it comes to delegations, I'm going to let Tracy speak to that.
Thank you, Ian. Sorry, my connection is a little unstable, it's warning me, but I'll point to item number 10.1F in the bylaw that speaks to delegations, and that under these extenuating circumstances, that all the delegations be determined in consultation with the chair and the general manager, but they are to be in the form of written submissions during this time. Just the challenge of trying to get delegations into an electronic forum. It was suggested by Conservation Ontario that it is just during declared emergencies that we address delegations in some form, and that written submissions could be allow the board to address them sufficiently.
Thank you for that, and happy to move the motion.
Marie has her hand up, Alan.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks, Anna. Marie?
Yeah, thank you. I had a question about that section number L. It says if a member's present and their name is called and there's no response to indicate a vote, the vote will be recorded in the negative. And I'm questioned that. Shouldn't that be, I mean, the reasons for that, because I would assume it would otherwise be recorded as abstaining. Because sometimes the negative is actually a positive vote, depending on the wording of the motion.
Okay, let me get Tracy to respond to that.
When it comes to voting, I was going to suggest either Ian or Michelle take that question, if I can, Alan.
Oh, okay, sure, sure.
I will, the only comment I have, Marie, is I noted the same thing. I assumed it would be abstaining. It's suggested it's negative, and you know, we're trying to apply these rules consistently. So I think as long as you as board members are aware of that, that for during declared emergencies, this is what the rule states. Just you're aware what actions indicate what vote. So, I mean, at this point, it's your call if you want an amendment to change that to have it be abstain. That's your call to do that. But yeah, I'm glad you raised it.
Well, if I could respond, I think maybe we should change it, and I would move to change it. It would be more consistent than with the following section 14 voting, because that under that section, it does indicate if there's, it does talk about abstaining under that section. So I think it would make the bylaws more consistent internally.
Okay. So Marie, you're making that amendment, and that is to
yes.
Hold on here. Section 10.2, and it's section L. And
Right.
if a member is present in person or electronically, name is called, and no response to indicate a vote is provided by the chair. If there's no indication of a vote, the chair, the vote will be recorded, and instead of the negative, you're saying be recorded as abstaining.
Right.
Okay. Would somebody like to second that amendment?
Hey, Chris?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Did someone second the motion? Or?
There was a hand up is all I was highlighting. Tony has his hand up. Sure, I'm going to mute now because Joe's on the phone. Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry. I had my hand
Tony.
up. Yeah.
Sorry, okay, Tony.
Yeah, I
Are
had
you
my hand
seconding
up.
this amendment?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions then on the amendment? Okay. We should really vote on the amendment first. Do we want to take this as a friendly amendment and just combine it all into one motion?
That's fine with me as the mover.
As the mover, I'm happy to do so.
Okay, because Tony seconded both the original motion and the amendment. If we're okay and comfortable that it's a friendly amendment, we can do this all with one vote. Just trying to save ourselves some time and effort here. So we'll take that as a friendly amendment. If there's no other comments or questions, I don't see anybody else hand raised here. So I'm going to ask Michelle to call the vote, call the roll on this amended motion.
Marie
Over to you,
Bloch.
Michelle.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Marie Bloch.
Yes. Yes.
Anna Hopkins.
Yes.
Tony Jackson.
Yes.
Sandy Levin.
I was actually out of the room at the time, so I didn't even hear the motion.
Would you like it repeated or just to abstain?
To abstain, please.
Okay. Nancy Manning.
Yes.
Hugh McDermott.
Yes.
Paul Mitchell.
Yes.
Anne Marie Murray. Brian Petrie.
Yes.
Jim Reffel.
Yes.
Joe Salter.
Sorry, Joe should have
Yes,
sound
Joe.
now. 1 second. Sorry, Joe, can you speak now?
Yes.
There we go. Sorry.
Mark Schadenberg.
Yes.
Alex Westman.
Yes.
And Alan Dale.
Yes. Okay, the motion's carried. Thank you. Item number 4, minutes of the previous meeting. And this was back on February the 20th. Moved by Nancy Manning and seconded by Hugh McDermott. Our mover and seconder okay with that motion?
Yes.
So moved. Oh. So
Good,
moved.
thank you. Thank you very much. Any comments or questions at all on the motion? Okay, if not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, I'll get Michelle to do the roll call.
Marie Bloch.
Yes.
Anna Hopkins.
Yes.
Tony Jackson.
Yes.
Sandy Levin.
Yes.
Nancy Manning.
Yes.
Hugh McDermott.
Yes.
Paul Mitchell.
Yes.
Anne Marie Murray. Anna Marie.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
There you go.
Okay, yes.
Brian Petrie.
Yes.
Jim Reffel.
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
and Alan Dale.
Yes. So that motion is carried. Item number 5, business arising from the minutes. Any business arising at all from the minutes of the last meeting? Tony.
Yep. Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chair. I did want to raise a point of order with regards to the motion from February 20th, the motion to object to the consideration of the question in our discussion on agenda item 7.1. In fairness to the chair and sitting chair, I've submitted a written submission on the point of order this morning for consideration and to deal with it efficiently and appropriately. That can come back at the next meeting if you so desire. So you've seen it this morning, I believe, and I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Tony. Yeah, I was a little late coming on the call because I was trying to get caught up on emails and read things. I think it would be best if we could leave this till next meeting, give chance for staff to respond, and then get something out to the board members, and we could all have some more information and be in a better position to make a determination on this. I think that would be the best solution. Any other comments or questions?
Anna has her hand up.
Anna, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you.
Anna?
Yeah, thank you for that. I would definitely suggest that. I haven't even seen the email, so I'm completely unaware of the letter coming forward.
Okay, yeah, so it's Tony said he sent it today, and we'll give staff a chance to look at it and get it sorted out for us, and that'll be a much better solution. Anything else? Okay, if not, we'll move on then. There's no delegations this morning. Item number 7, business for approval. The report there is the agricultural land leases, and it's moved by Paul Mitchell and seconded by Anna Marie. That the board of directors approve the recommendation as presented in the report. Is that okay with the mover and the seconder?
Yes,
Yes.
I will move that.
And
Okay.
yes, I will second it.
Good, thanks, Anna Marie. Anyone have any comments or questions on the report? We've got Alex and Bill here if we have any questions or comments. Paul
has his hand up. Yep, got it.
Just a couple comments and a question. I think it makes sense to move it to a 5-year term. There's advantages as far as stewardship. A farmer will tend to take better care of the property if he has a better chance of getting benefit out of it. So if such things as crop rotation and using cover crops are both things that we want to encourage. Also, there's a lot of uncertainty in the farm community as far as crop prices right now and quota values and that sort of thing. And much of it to do with the COVID situation. And I think a year from now, not only we may have more farmers interested in this property, but they would have a better picture of what they would willing to pay for the next lease term. So I think from that standpoint, it makes sense to delay renewing the leases for another year. The question is, does this have any impact if we at some point decide we want to sell some of this land? Having it tied up in a lease, would that have any impact on that discussion?
Okay, Alex or Bill, whoever wants to tackle that question.
Bill?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Paul. Yes, we have it written right in our leases that we have a clause if we want to sell the land. We just give a certain amount of notice, And also, if we want to retire certain portions of the land, again, we give a certain amount of notice and we just deduct that off the acreage for that given year.
Okay,
So
thank you.
it will not tie anything up. The lease does not tie up selling or retiring the land.
Good. Thanks, Bill.
Mark has his hand up.
Good,
Alan,
thank
as well.
you. Mark has his hand up.
Yes, I did, through the
Are you
chair,
there,
too. I
Mark?
guess Bill as well to answer the question. Unless I'm missing it in the report, I didn't see what the identification was for the rate per acreage that's being charged. I know it probably varies based if it's going to be 100 acres or a much smaller parcel of land. I just wanted to make sure it was sort of competitive rates compared to what other farmers get for leasing out land, or at least other homeowners get for property owners get for leasing out their land.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, to Mark. We have, you'll see in the report, there's quite a different size and variations to the size of the parcels. Some of the small parcels identified 2 and 3 acres are landlocked in, and they're basically only one person can farm them. So we basically charge a flat rate of $100 an acre for those. All the other ones that we tender out competitively, right now the price is anywhere from $260 to about $320 an acre.
All right, that's good, thank you. Any other questions or comments? I don't see
Mark's
anything.
hand, sorry, Alan, Mark's hand just went up.
Oh, Mark, okay, back to you again.
Yeah, I guess not really a question, just more of a statement. I just know in the city of Woodstock, when we had some rural land, they actually left it fallow for a couple of years because they didn't get any competitive bids that were within range of what the market should be. And they didn't want to sort of, as I say, destroy the market and not get enough for their land. So they actually just left it fallow for that year. Just making more of a statement. Thanks.
Well, thank you. That's interesting to note. Because yeah, it sounds like we don't have that problem here. We're getting, 260 to 320. That adds up. That's pretty good. So yeah, interesting that Woodstock's not having the same sort of situation. Huh. Any other comments or questions? If not, I'm going to call for the votes and ask Michelle to conduct a roll call again.
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
and Alan Dale.
Yes. So motion is carried. That takes us down to item number 8, which is business for information. And the first item we have there is the 2019 Health and Safety Summary. And the motion is that the Board of Directors receive the report as presented. Moved by Brian Petrie and seconded by Jim Reffel. Are Brian and Jim okay with that motion?
Yes, I am.
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Good, thank you very much. Any comments or questions at all on that report or anything at all?
I had one question, actually maybe two. Maybe for Carrie, I see she's popped into the meeting there. Carrie, were there any critical incidents that occurred during 2019 that required hospitalization or visits to the hospital?
We had 2 lost injury, but no critical injuries, nothing that required a hospitalization or anything like that.
And my second question through you, Mr. Chair, is what does UTRCA stand for? Talked about training certification through.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I should have put that. That's the Canoe and Kayak Association.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
All right, very good. Paul, you have a question?
Yeah, a two-part question. What constitutes a full body injury? And were the two full body injuries also the lost time injuries?
Full body injury, it's like if you hurt shoulder, like you hurt basically your entire body. You threw out your back, you hurt your shoulders, your knees. So I'm not sure. Let me just, sorry, I've got to switch over here to, those were not the lost time injuries. And I do believe that actually one of them is mine, where I hurt back, shoulders, the whole gamut, trying to push a vehicle out of a snowbank. So, but those were not the lost time injuries.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else there at all? Okay, I'm looking for their hands up. I don't see anybody. I don't see anybody else with a hand up. Oh, Ian.
Sure. Just want to highlight that the whole training section that's at the back of the report. It's the smallest section, but through Carrie's role with the authority, training, you need to be aware of the amount of effort that goes into training for staff. The amount of days is incredible. Our obligations, our commitments, our due diligence to conduct training. I mean, I'm surprised no one asked what book 7 was, but that's even just how you park a vehicle at the side of the road using pylons and flashing lights. And this training often is recurring, needs to be updated, if not annually, every couple of years. Carrie's role part-time as health and safety specialist with the authority. And one of her biggest tasks is not only organizing that training, but with the help of HR, is making sure we have adequate records, because if it's not recorded, if it's not written down that you're trained, then it didn't happen according to Ministry of Labor. So it is a huge amount of effort, and yet it's absolutely necessary to make sure the staff are safe. So I will say this whole COVID experience and the actions we took before we started to work at home, Carrie had a huge role in. Joint Health and Safety Committee will have a huge role in determining how we come back to work as well, and what that looks like. So this report only comes to you once a year, and it's exceptionally brief compared to the level of effort that goes into health and safety and training for staff. So I just needed to give a bit of a shout out to Carrie and the work that the Joint Health and Safety Committee do on behalf of the organization, and frankly, do to protect you, because through managers and right up to the board level, the repercussions for inadequate health and safety training is probably some of the most serious there are, including jail time. So we all rely on and depend on Carrie. Okay, thanks, Mr. Chair.
And I just would like to mention that it's not just me or the Health and Safety Committee, but we have a whole ton of trainers on staff that take on a lot of that, and each one of them has had to train the trainer training. And so we have a lot of in-house trainers, so I can't take all of the praise, but thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to make a suggestion here. Ian mentioned we only see this report once a year. And it's noted here, we're not seeing the actions from October to December. I think it would be a good idea to see something later on this year, just as a bit of a follow-up to that last quarter from 2019, plus a bit of an update on the whole COVID situation, because the last line is that we have 16 members trained in mental health. And when you think right now about what we're going through and how mental health is critical, a lot of people have really struggled with getting through this whole episode, this time period. It looks to me like our staff have done an excellent job. And I know Ian's newsletter, for those board members that read Ian's newsletter, I mean, the communication to our staff, the resources available to our staff, I think it's pretty impressive. So it might be worth not waiting a whole year before we get a bit of an update on this stuff. It's pretty critical. And so yes, thank you very much, Ian and Carrie. And I think it would be good to get a bit of an update later on in the year on this.
Sure, I can absolutely do that once we return to work. It might be a good way to figure out how everybody did once everybody's back in the office, but I can definitely do that.
Right. Well, let's hope it might take quite some time before everybody gets back in the office, but it's something we'll work towards. Yeah. Good. Any other? I don't see any other hands up. So if everyone's okay, we're going to call for the vote, and I'll get Michelle to call the roll.
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anne Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
and Alan Dale.
Yes. So that motion is carried. Next one we have is 8.2. It's our Section 28 status report. Development, interference with wetlands, and alterations to shorelines and watercourses regulation. And the motion is that the Board of Directors receives the report as presented. Moved by Joe Salter, and seconded by Mark Schadenberg. Are Joe and Mark okay with that motion?
I am. As
Yes, I
shown.
am. Yep.
Good. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We've got Tracy, if anyone has any comments or questions, and I see Anna has her hand up. Over to you, Anna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a quick question, just a better understanding given that we're in a pandemic and we know that timelines have been suspended or changed by the province to, and I'm just wondering how the Section 28 process has changed. And as we come out of the pandemic, what we'll be doing or any concerns moving forward. I'd just like to get a better understanding on the process as it relates to the pandemic.
Yes, thank you, Anna, through the chair. With our processes for permits, not a lot has actually changed with the exception of site visits. But when it comes to application processes, applications are continuing to be received electronically instead. We have a regulations inquiry email address, so submissions can come through that and or be directed to staff. We do have, as an essential service, any compliance monitoring and follow-up for violations is still occurring. Staff take their own vehicles and do check-ins before and after. So some of those processes have changed slightly because, again, you're not meeting with landowners. But again, so much can be done over the phone that all of that is continuing. We're only seeing a little bit of delay with construction projects not being able to start their work because not all construction sites are considered essential. However, many of our projects involving bridges or culverts can continue as infrastructure projects. So just a little bit different ways of receiving information, but much of the same work is continuing.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for that information. So it's business as usual. Any concerns as we come out of the pandemic if you anticipate challenges with the process in recovery?
Yes, we do anticipate some people may have been holding off on their applications, expecting that, oh, I can't get to work right now, so I'll just hold on to it. I want to talk to someone in person. We are kind of preparing ourselves for a bit of a backlog at that time. So certainly the same concern for planning act applications as well. Yes, our numbers are looking great right now, but certainly moving forward and having to deal with the backlog, very concerned that staff will have even more work to catch up on.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks, Anna. Next, I have Marie.
Yeah, thank you. I had a couple of questions looking at this. One was sort of just a more general question about what distinguishes major from minor. Because I see things like a garage is major, and then a two-story or a single-family residence is minor. And I was just wondering if I could get some better understanding of what distinguishes them. And then the other question that I had was with the violations. And I know there seem to be a chronic problem. And I was just noticing that there's quite a few here from London. And I was wondering, in terms of finding those violations, if the London city staff reported them to the Upper Thames staff. I'm just wondering how I know sometimes they're just found, but I was wondering if there's any kind of reporting that's done that way.
Okay, over to you, Tracy.
Yes, if I may, through the chair. For the first question relating to major and minor applications, it's not always about the impact on or the size of the structure. It's about the impact on the hazard feature. So yes, a garage could be considered major because of its proximity to floodplain or slope hazards and the need for additional technical studies to address those hazards. So I know typically in my mind, I'd always think of, oh, it's just a small garage. But again, our business is more about the hazards and their placement. So if that garage is well away from the floodplain or well set back from a wetland, then again, it's a minor type of application. But if it's being proposed on the top of a slope, a very active ravine hazard and erosion hazard, well, then that would constitute more of a major type of application. So it's about that complexity related to the hazards. The follow-up to the violations questions, maybe I'll have Brent answer that directly. But predominantly, we're not out driving around looking for violations. They've come to our attention by some means. And sometimes it's city staff, sometimes it's adjacent property owners. Often feuding neighbors are great tattletales. But certainly we hear about them through a number of means. But Brent can answer the question specifically for some of the violations that are on the report today.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Marie, just to follow up on Tracy's comments there. First of all, can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Just to follow up on Tracy's great summary, it's a variety of examples. The general public sometimes calls us. A lot of instances where we receive a site plan consultation or site plan application, that brings us forward. We'll take a look at some mapping, some aerial imagery, and we'll take a look at the property and plan a site visit, and we'll find out then. Other instances, yes, city staff do notify us of various violations once in a while. And then other instances, again, just driving by.
We lost Brent.
Are you there, Brent? Oh, we lost him, I guess.
He froze up. He's mid-sentence, so. And he's unmuted, but it must be his connection, sorry.
Okay.
Well, I'll just say thank you for that. I think he, I just wanted a little bit better understanding. So thank you. My questions are, even with
I think
essentially answered.
He was just going on to kind of answer that, yeah, a lot of times through an application brings us out to a site visit. And sometimes you can see when applicants have gotten ahead of themselves to do some general grading activities and site alteration prior to having all their approvals in place. So hopefully that helps.
All right, very good. Next question, Mark Schadenberg.
Yeah, I guess through the chair again, to Tracy, I just want, I guess my comment would be, my question was really basically about the violations, and therefore maybe something I can email Tracy separately about as a one specific scenario, specific case. But again, you talked about the fact that it's sometimes a neighborhood dispute and whatnot. Like, so that kind of answers my question on that part too. I was looking more on the side of the infractions, not necessarily the builders and developers that we have to give a pat on the back to we're doing things forward and in the correct method. Thanks a lot.
Good, good. I don't see any other hands up. Any other questions or comments? If not, we're going to call for the vote.
Mr. Chair, I had a question.
Oh, sorry, Jim. Yes, go ahead.
It's okay, through you, Mr. Chair. I had a question for Tracy for Section 28 permits, and I don't know if I've noticed this before, but where you have the application, notice of complete application, you've got required and a date and actual and a different date. And what is what's that all about?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair. When we have those dates, they are kind of our timeline tracking to be consistent with the required response periods as we've seen through our client service delivery standards that Conservation Ontario has recommended. Okay. So we kind of include both those separate iterations for when we're supposed to be getting back to people about a complete application, and then when we actually got back to them. Sometimes it's before, sometimes it's after those prescribed timelines, and those timelines change depending on the permit categorization. So it's kind of built into our spreadsheet in our tracking system, but when we look at have we met those obligations, we're looking at our overall timeline. So yes, what is the full length of the timeline that's prescribed, and have we achieved that? So that's why it's giving a few different dates from the required through the standard set by Conservation Ontario, and then when our actual dates were.
Okay, that's what I kind of thought. Now, at the end of the year, would you be sort of tracking sort of percentages of times that you met those standards or didn't meet the standards?
Yes, through the chair, that's exactly what we're doing. So for high growth conservation authorities, or those high growth areas, we've been asked to provide a report for Conservation Ontario's consideration at its next meeting. As well, another report is expected in November. The intent moving forward is for annual reporting, but because this is the first year of tracking under these circumstances, and with these new requirements, they wanted to have a few opportunities to potentially refine the tracking tables and the reporting mechanisms. So right now we've provided what Conservation Ontario has requested so they can look at those comparables, but that may be further refined as we go through, and then after this year it's anticipated that it'll be an annual report.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks. Mark, you have another question?
Yeah, this time I do have a question. It's one of the things we talk about often is the floodplain mapping and how that can be sort of changed and be, here's a kind of pun of the day, fluid changes in the floodplain mapping. But how did that hold up this year with the amount of flooding we did have sort of in the February warm spells and whatnot, as far as what you could predict versus what actually happened? Because I know notices went out where had some suggested areas that flooding could occur, and most of the places that did occur, like in Woodstock and Southside Park. But how did the floodplain mapping hold up to what happened this January, February, March?
Yes, to the chair. I'll kind of start with the response and maybe ask Chris Tasker if he wants to follow up. But we have our regulation limit mapping. That's based on the 1937 flood event. So we certainly haven't experienced a 37 flood event this year. So our mapping is quite, it's more reflective of that size and duration of event. So certainly from what we've seen so far, we didn't see that this spring. So again, that's our tools. That's how the regulation is crafted to ensure that we're regulating to those extreme events. In other areas of the province, it's Hurricane Hazel as their regulatory storm event. But certainly we didn't see those flood levels to reflect floodplains that go to the extent of those areas that are mapped. But certainly if Chris would like to add anything else, I'll ask him now.
Anything at all, Chris?
Sure. I think there's a couple important factors there, and I think Tracy covered off quite well the fact that the regulatory mapping is different than mapping of the lesser events, but we do use the data from those lesser events to help us calibrate and verify the models. And our intent when we move forward with completing the regulatory mapping would be to develop some mapping for lesser events to give us better tools for predicting as far as flood forecasting and warning goes. So it kind of factors in with the regulatory mapping, but not exactly the same product.
Good, thank you very much. Sandy, did you have your hand up?
No. I'm fine.
Well, there's Sandy. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions at all, anyone? Okay, if there's no other questions or comments, we're going to call for the vote. Michelle, can you do the roll, please?
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anne Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
and Alan Dale.
Yes. So the motion is carried. Next item we have on the agenda is 8.3. That's the COVID-19 update. The motion is that the Board of Directors receives the report as presented. The mover, Alex Westman, and seconder is Marie Blosh. Is that okay with the mover and the seconder?
Fine with me.
Fine with me.
Okay, and fine with Alex, good. So that's the motion, and we're gonna get Ian to hit some highlights on this report, please.
Thanks through you, Mr. Chair. The report's pretty up to date, and as Alan said, if you've been reading any of the staff updates that come out each Friday, that's given updates as well. But just a few things to highlight. First of all, and Tracy said it, work is continuing. I mean, despite this disruption in different work spaces, people are still very busy. There's some uncertainty with certain programs, and the conservation areas are highlighted. Tree plantings had to be modified, but for the most part, it's carrying on with the business and our priorities, trying to deliver programs and services and make it work. So I don't want anyone to have the perception that we're just sitting around waiting for this to end. That's far from the truth. When it comes to the budget or the financial impacts of COVID, as I said, it's a revenue side of things. It's not an expenditure side of things for us. And the most current issue is the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. Christine, who is on this call, and Sharon Vigilante have worked very hard to confirm our eligibility for this, because there's been a whole lot of question about it, a lot of arguments among the conservation authorities. And then Christine and Sharon worked through the weekend, and we submitted our request for this 75% wage subsidy. That went in yesterday. So we're very hopeful, very optimistic. I'll say that subsidy comes through. We should find out within a week, we hope. And that would greatly affect how we manage staff and resources for the next few months. So we'll see what happens. There was another announcement last week from the federal government, the Canada Emergency Student Benefit, which of course doesn't come to us directly, but it could have an impact in our hiring. I'll point to our conservation areas again, where we hire a large number of students, and seasonal workers. We've done all the interviewing and the job offers, but we just haven't had start dates until the conservation area is open. But the challenge with this new student benefit is the level of funding they receive is almost matches the wage we would provide for first-year students. So, you know, we're not sure what the terms and conditions are around this. I'm sure they're supposed to be actively seeking work, but we're already suspecting it could be a challenge if a student says, well, do I make $12.50 for sitting at home or $1,400 for going to work every day? So, and that's per week. So we will see. We're just aware of that. And then the final thing is, I mean, up till now, there's been so much uncertainty on the finance side of things. You know, the duration of this pandemic and these modified arrangements is the biggest thing. What will be the impact on our ability to generate revenue from user fees? So, you know, trying to plan with uncertainty is very difficult, but we are putting together a financial response plan that really tries to look at a bunch of milestones through time. You know, if we're still out of the office, or if we still can't open for business in the conservation areas, or, you know, tree planting or education programs, as we go through the months, what's the implication of the organization and what's our response? So we are preparing as best we can for pretty well every scenario, and I think it's our nature to always look at the worst case and prepare for that one first. But we have this kind of progressive strategy we're putting together to position us. But I'll warn you up front, if worst case does come to fruition, being able to mitigate that loss of revenue completely might be unrealistic. And you know, our year-end financials may reflect that. But we are taking action now as best we can to eliminate that. So those are my only additional comments. I will, through you, Mr. Chair, I don't know if Christine Saraceno, if there's anything you want to add, or if not, we're both here to answer questions.
Okay. Anything you want to add, Christine?
Not really, no. We're doing the best we can.
Well, it sounds like you've been hard at it. So I know it's early days, but we appreciate the effort that staff have been putting in, especially with that deadline for that application. Okay, I'll turn over for questions. I've got Tony.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So listening to Ian's comments and going over everything that's happening, obviously, I believe that not only on the revenue side, but on the expense side, we should be seeing some dramatic change. Our budget that we passed in February certainly has changed in the need, and I think it would be appropriate to make some guesses, I guess, and revisit that whole budget. Certainly the revenue side, we're going to lose a lot from the campground and other projects, but also on the expense side, you know, there may be some there may be some windfalls actually out of this if we can get the 75% top up to wages to keep staff, and they do the same work they were doing. That could actually be a benefit. But at the same time, I think we need to see a revised budget. Every corporate entity out there is revisiting their budget, crafting new budgets and updated capital projects and plans and hiring strategies. So I really think we need to see, you know, 2 or 3 options for a budget revisit and know where we're going. In all honesty, I expect and anticipate that we'll be back to a new normal sometime in the next, I don't know, 3 to 6 weeks. We'll start to see things come back online. I expect that parks and campgrounds will start to open up, maybe in a modified version or whatever. But you know, do we operate with a full contingent of staff? with only half the patrons. These are things we need to know and understand, I think. And, I think we can predict that one quarter for sure will be a total write-off as far as revenue. But after that, I think we'll start to see it dwindle back in. But are there some efficiencies, or do we have to go to a full staff complement with only a fraction of the revenue? So anyway, I think we need to predict and anticipate and provide some options for the board to consider as a budget update. Thank you.
Okay. You have any comments on that at all, Ian?
Sure. Just briefly, I don't want you to assume that we're not looking at the expense side. The direct impacts from COVID are revenue, and we've already responded. We are not operating at full capacity. We have many vacant positions. We are not hiring seasonal staff. We've gone through every line item in our budget to reduce expenses anywhere we possibly can. So we are already taking those actions, knowing that that revenue will be reduced. When it comes to providing an updated budget for the report or for the board's consideration, we will provide an updated budget. But at this point, and I'm looking at Christine too, the situation is so incredibly fluid and uncertain. We're struggling just to maintain and manage the scenarios day to day and adjust them day to day. So I'm hoping for just a little more, I'll say certainty, a little more clarity about returning to work before we can really before it's worth our time assembling a revised budget. As for moving forward, we know the campgrounds already provincial parks, and we're following their lead. And I'm looking at Jennifer now, May 31st. They're closed till then for sure. And keep in mind that even, and one of our scenarios is not opening until the beginning of July. There reaches a point of diminishing returns for us in that operation. And if you read the report, even if we open at the beginning of July, we may not offer camping because we would be required to staff up to a certain level. And without the revenue there, the many months of revenue, when it's compressed into such a short season, revenue wouldn't cover expenses. So we would have to modify what services we even provide. And that's all part of being fluid, and those discussions are ongoing. So don't want you to think we're just sitting back. We are definitely managing the parts of the budget we can.
Okay, good. Thanks, Ian. I know we'll be having some more financial updates as we go along. So, okay. Next, I have Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to reach out and say thank you to staff. Thank you to Ian for the updates. They've been very informative of what's going on. I want to put a kudos out to your staff to being active on social media and helping people through this with all the events. That's an awesome thing they're doing for the community, and it's been well received. Giving something people to do while they're home is good to keep their mind active and spread our message. Even though your programs aren't open, you're still spreading the message of the Conservation Authority, and that's key. Because people are going to want to get out, and if they're getting educated in the programs that are available and what we're about, then they can take that on afterwards. It is an unprecedented time. Budgets are, I don't know how you would plan a budget. I agree with Tony, there's going to be a different budget because it changed from what we were talking about at the beginning of the year. I don't envy anybody trying to plan the future on this one because, as you said, it's changing day to day, and I'm getting that from my municipality as well. They're just hoping that the announcements slow down a little bit so they can actually, it's actually make them more work every day trying to plan what the next message is going to be rather than planning on what the messages they already have. So hopefully things get stabilized a little bit as we peak, and then we can start on the reopening plan, and you guys can get a little bit more stable information to help you plan in the future. I also like to say I think all that grant writing experience hopefully helps us apply for all these programs. You got to step up on that one, hopefully, and hopefully your partners still step up to the plate. They're going to be struggling as well. that is one question I do have is, have we heard from the funding partners at all about their contributions and if they're still willing to put those up as far as contract funding?
Through the chair to Brian, ironically, the contracts are have been solid. We've communicated with most of the funders, and their expectation or their hope is that we can still deliver according to the terms of the contract. But there's no question that the funding's been available, and in fact, we've had new contracts come in during this COVID period, so that stuff is still going on. So it's kind of ironic. So no concerns on that side to date. Okay.
Okay, very good. Thanks. Next question is from Anna.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to staff. In particular, I think the updates that we are receiving from Ian are very, very helpful in understanding what's going on because of the changing times. It seems like every week or so there's a new conversation or a new plan. And of course, we're all looking at how a recovery is going to look like as well. So I do appreciate the updates that we're getting. I hope I can share those with my colleagues. If I can't, maybe that's a question through you, Mr. Chair, to staff to let me know how much of this information I can share with my colleagues on council. I wanted to sort of say as well, I agree with Tony completely that everything is very, it's very difficult to predict now or even to anticipate what we're going to do with our budget. At the City of London, we're at SPPC tonight, we're going to be looking at the impacts to our municipality and anticipating between 23 million to 33 million if we go till August, and then we can always count on probably 10 million per month. So we know our budgets are going to change, or we may have to look at them eventually. But given the unpredictability of what's going on, it's very difficult, and I would say a little bit important to be a little bit maybe patient as we try to understand what is going on. And I really think it is important because we as a city have asked our boards and commissions to encourage them to look at mitigation, to look at what the costs and impacts are now, and to do what they need to do to mitigate those impacts. And through you, Mr. Chair, I wonder if it's possible that we could get some update at our next meeting on just sort of keeping up to date with the changes that may be impacted to our budget. I don't know how that can be done, but if that's a possibility, just to get more of a just to be more aware of the possible impacts to our budget and being updated, if that's possible, given that everything is uncertain. So that's a question to staff.
Thank you, Anna. Ian, you want to respond to that at all?
Yes. So through the chair to Anna, first of all, as far as sharing the staff updates, yeah, public information you can share with whoever you want. Agree about the mitigation and certainly your request for the May board meeting, rather than a revised budget, which is a large undertaking, I'd be happy to prepare a report that just summarizes the mitigation strategies that we have in place, which will really look at, I mean, it'll just be, here's the revenues, how we expect they're impacted as of, the day I write the report, and then the expense side, what we've done to modify expenses. I think that's fair, and I'm certainly that'll be different between now and May, the May board meeting too, but yeah, we'd be happy to put that together.
Thank you for that. Through you, Mr. Chair, do we need a motion for that, or will we just leave it with staff?
I think we can leave it with staff. We've got Ian's COVID update for this meeting, and I'm sure we'll get one for the next meeting. And if that's all right with the board, I think we'll leave it at that. And staff have direction, and we'll look forward to report next meeting. Next question I've got is Paul.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I really appreciate how honest and open Ian and the rest of the senior management have been about the situation. The temptation for morale purposes is to say, don't worry, everything's going to work out okay. But Ian and the other managers have been very honest about that everything's probably not going to be. And there's a variety of scenarios that could, with this works out, and some of them could involve layoffs or job reductions. And I think that staff and board, not only is the board going to have to be making some decisions about our financial, what we do with financials, but each member of the staff has to make their own personal decisions. And by being as honest as Ian and the rest of them have been, each staff is in a better position to make those decisions over the next few months. So I just want to make comment that I appreciate that they've taken a look at everything and not tried to sugarcoat this in any way.
Agreed. Yes, I think as I said, that communication piece to staff has been excellent, and letting everybody know that there's a whole range of options and nothing's off the table. So people are well prepared for what may happen. Sandy, you're next. Do you have a comment or question?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Echoing that comment from Paul, in that you can't under-communicate in times like this. So thank you, Ian, for keeping staff up to date. Just thinking, though, as been pointed out, things are fluid and are changing. So, Ian, is it reasonable to expect that the board will get updates between meetings as things progress?
Through the chair,
Ian?
I guess my comfort level, if there's something significant, like we receive funding for the wage subsidy, I will absolutely let you know that day. And if there's major decisions that have to be made that affect program or service levels, we will certainly let you know between meetings. I'd prefer to not commit to a scheduled update if there's no news, but absolutely I'll try and keep you as informed as everybody else, because the more you know, the easier my job is.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's it.
Okay, good. Thank you. I don't see any other hands up. So if there's no other comments or questions, appreciate that, Ian. That's great for that update. And again, the motion was the board of directors received the report as presented. If there's no other questions, I'll ask for Michelle to take the vote.
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott, Hugh,
You there, Hugh? He may have muted his computer.
that's right. Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Raffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
and Alan Dale.
Yes. The motion's carried. Thank you. That takes us to item 8.4. It's correspondence from the municipality of South Huron. And the motion is that the board of directors receive the report as presented. Moved by Jim Ruffle and seconded by Anna Hopkins. Are the mover and seconder okay with receiving that piece of correspondence?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Good, thank you. Any comments or questions at all on correspondence? I don't see any Any hands up? So I will ask Michelle once again to take the vote.
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott. We'll take the silence as an abstention as per the bylaws. Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
and Alan Dale.
Yes. So that motion is carried. Takes us down to item number 9. Other business and chairs and general managers' remarks. Just a few quick things I want to mention. Appreciate everyone's patience while we go through this. Sometimes it's a little bit of a delay and it's a little tricky, but we seem to be managing quite well. So if anybody has any suggestions, any comments, let us know. But we can expect that our next meeting will also be done in the same format. And I don't know, if Ian, if you have anything to add at all?
Nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Well, again, as was mentioned, our staff are quite busy. It's quite challenging time. It's, as you can appreciate, some things take a lot longer to do now, but certainly there is a lot for staff to do. It seems like it's a very different time. We're kind of this time of year, we're accustomed to being out with tree planting and all sorts of springtime events. It's certainly, it's a different feeling this year, but we'll get through this, and staff certainly have been quite challenged with all this, but I just want to thank everyone for their patience and understanding as we go through everything. So if there's nothing else, that takes us to item number 10, which is our closed session. We have one item to deal with in camera. Motion moved that the board of directors adjourned to closed session in camera. Moved by Tony Jackson, seconded by Nancy Manning. Are the mover and seconder okay with that motion?
I'm fine.
Thank you. Tony?
Yes, I'm fine.
Good. Thank you, Tony. Michelle, can you do the vote for us to go into camera?
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Sandy Levin.
Yes. But
Yes.
the motion to go into camera, then I'm gone.
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott. Okay. Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
and Alan Dale.
Yes. So the motion is carried. We are now going to go to a camera session. So thank you to any staff or anyone else that was listening in. Appreciate your participation. But I'll ask now that anyone who shouldn't be in closed session should disconnect from the call. That brings us down to item number 11, which is a motion to adjourn. Just a quick reminder, we're going to adjourn this meeting and we're going to immediately reconvene as a source protection authority. It's something we're legally obligated to do because it's a separate, we sit as a separate committee for that, so it has to be done separately. So I have a motion here moved by Jim Reffel that we adjourn. Thank you very much, everyone. And we will now reconvene a separate meeting as a Source Water Protection Authority. And I think we're still all here, but legally I need to ask Michelle to do the roll call again for this
Sure, I'm just
meeting.
letting folks back in, so they're joining. So Sandy, Tracy, and Jenna should be joining. Give them a second.
Perfect, thank you. Thanks, Chris. Okay, Michelle, I'll let you do the roll call, please.
Okay. Marie Bloch.
I am here.
Alan Dale.
Present.
Anna Hopkins.
Present.
Tony Jackson.
Sorry, I keep muting myself. I'm saying yes, but you can't hear me. Yes.
Sandy Levin.
Present.
Nancy Manning.
Present.
Hugh McDermott.
Present.
Paul Mitchell.
Present.
Anna Marie Murray.
Yes.
Brian Petrie.
Present.
Jim Reffel.
Here.
Joe Salter.
Here.
Mark Schadenberg.
Present.
Alex Westman.
Present.
And I forgot to say Don Edmonston, who is not here.
Yep, Don sent his regrets. Good, thank you very much, everyone. And we have Jenna with us. Hopefully Jenna's there. Jenna is our Source Protection Project Manager. And so she's got provided us with a few reports here for this meeting. And I'm just gonna bring it up here on my other screen. Okay, there we go. All right, first motion here is to the adoption of the agenda, moved by Joe Salter, seconded by Mark Schadenberg. The members approve the agenda as posted. Joe and Mark, are you okay with that motion?
I am. It's Joe.
Yep.
Yes.
Mark seconds. Thank you. Michelle, I'll give you a call the vote for this motion.
Marie Bloch.
Yes.
Anna Hopkins.
Yes.
Tony Jackson.
Yes.
Sandy Levin.
Yes.
Nancy Manning.
Yes.
Hugh McDermott.
Yes.
Paul Mitchell.
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray.
Yes.
Brian Petrie.
Yes.
Jim Reffel.
Yes.
Joe Salter.
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg.
Yes.
Alex Westman.
Yes.
And Alan Dale.
Yes. So that motion is carried. Thank you. Takes us to number 2, which is the amendment to the Source Water Protection Committee policies. And the motion is that the Source Protection Authority approve the recommendations as presented in the report. Moved by Alex Westman and seconded by Marie Bloch. Alex and Marie are okay with that motion?
Yep.
Yep. Yes
Okay.
for me.
Good, thank you. And I'll turn it over to Jenna. You have some points you want to highlight in that report?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. So similar to the way you changed your policies this morning to allow you to meet virtually as a board and as a Source Protection Authority, I've included this report recommending that you change the policy document for our Source Protection Committee to also allow them to meet virtually. We have another meeting scheduled for June 12th. We haven't made any decisions about whether we'll defer that meeting or not, and depending on the situation and if the meeting moves forward, we may need to move virtually for that meeting. So I've included the entire policy document for our Source Protection Committee that's included in your package. And what I've recommended is that you include a section into Section 3 of the Rules of Procedure, which speaks to electronic participation in meetings. So that section that I've added is included in your report. So the recommendation is that you adopt that new wording into the Rules of Procedure.
Good, thank you, Jenna. Anyone have any questions or comments at all for Jenna on those amendments to the No? Okay, if no one has any comments or questions, pretty straightforward, like what we just did with amending our own bylaws and rules before. Okay, Michelle, can you call the vote again? We'll vote on favor of approving the recommendations as presented in the report.
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anne Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
Alan Dale.
Yes. So the motion's carried. Thank you very much. Item number 3 is the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. And that was a year ago, April 23rd, 2019. Moved by Joe Salter and second by Anna Hopkins. Are the mover and seconder okay with that motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Good, thank you. So the motion is that the minutes of the Upper Thames River Source Protection Authority dated April 23rd, 2019 be approved as presented. Any comments or questions at all on those minutes? I'm not seeing anything. So I'll call for the vote. Michelle, can you do the roll again, please?
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yep.
and Alan Dale.
Yes. So the motion's carried. Takes us to item number 4, which is business for approval. And we have 4.1, which is the ratification of the elected positions. Motion that the Source Protection Authority approve the recommendation as presented in the report. Moved by Tony Jackson and seconded by Nancy Manning. Are the mover and seconder okay with that motion?
Yes.
Yeah, I second it.
Good, thank you. Jenna, you want to highlight this one at all? It's pretty straightforward, I know, but anything you want to add?
No, I have nothing to add.
Okay. We're just ratifying Joe's appointment to the striking committee. Any comments or questions? I don't see anything. Okay, if there's no comments or questions, we're going to call for the vote here. Michelle, can you do the roll again?
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
Alan Dale.
Yes. So the motion's carried. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate the work you do on serving on that committee. Doesn't seem like they meet very often or there's a whole lot, but we know there's lots going on there. So we appreciate you helping out with that committee. The next one we have is item 4.2, the Drinking Water Source Protection Annual Progress Report. The motion is that the Source Protection Authority approve the recommendations as presented in the report. Moved by Hugh McDermott and seconded by Paul Mitchell. Are the mover and seconder okay with that motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Good, thank you. That's a long report, lots of information there. Jenna, can you walk us through that report, please?
Yes, of course. So one of the legislative responsibilities under the Clean Water Act for our Source Protection Authority is to annually prepare an annual progress report. And the report is to summarize the efforts that have been made in the previous calendar year to implement the policies contained in the Source Protection Plan. This report's due by May 1st to the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, and it needs to be approved by our authority, the lead Source Protection Authority, as well as our partner authorities, so the St. Clair Region Source Protection Authority and the Lower Thames Valley Source Protection Authority. So this report is going to both of their authorities as well. And there's two separate reports. The first is a public-facing report. So it's once we submit it on May the 1st, we'll be releasing it publicly. And it's more of a higher level report that highlights all of the actions that have been taken. And then also included in your package is our supplemental report. And the supplemental report contains a lot more of the detailed information for which the public report is summarized from. And we collect all of this information through all of our implementing bodies, which include our municipalities, provincial ministries, the conservation authorities themselves. And that's all done electronically each year through a platform that's been developed by our senior information management specialist, John Campbell. So the deadline for that reporting is February 1st. So we collect all of the information from our implementers on February 1st. We analyze the data and then put it into these two reports. And the reports are both a prescribed format by the ministry. So the other thing that happens is that this report is reviewed by our Source Protection Committee. So we managed to have our committee meeting on March 13th, which was only a few days ahead of when our office closed. But we did manage to have an in-person meeting with that committee. And at the meeting on the 13th, they reviewed this report as well. And they had the opportunity to comment and provide comments to you as an authority on how they feel that progress is being achieved on the implementation of the plan. So in the committee's opinion, they feel that progress is going well, and they provided a paragraph statement kind of summarizing why they feel that way. 100% of the policies in the plan to address significant drinking water threats have been implemented or are in the process of being implemented. They talk about the number of significant drinking water threats which have been managed through risk management plans, which is 116 significant drinking water threats that have now been managed through 57 different risk management plans across the source protection region. And they touch on some of the other kind of highlights that our municipalities reported as being a success story as a result of implementing source protection plan policies. One was an open doors event in St. Mary's that attracted over 300 attendees. So it was an open well event, and our staff were there presenting information on source protection. We've had a number of municipalities that have undertaken emergency response training with staff, and they've asked us for different scenarios that would involve a drinking water source protection type of an emergency. So we've provided that information, and a number of our municipalities have gone ahead and incorporated that into annual training that they do with emergency response staff. And we had another municipality that reported just voluntary best management practices that are being undertaken when they've been out meeting with businesses and property owners that are located in vulnerable areas close to municipal drinking water supplies, and sort of the willingness on the ground to undertake measures even though they may not necessarily be required to by policy. So those are some of the things that the committee wanted to highlight as part of their rationale for indicating that the plans are progressing well and moving forward. So that sort of summarizes our reports, and the recommendation is that you as a source protection authority approve these reports to be submitted to the ministry for the May 1st deadline.
Good. Thank you very much, Jenna. Questions and comments? Sandy, you're first.
Through you to Jenna, this is a retrospective report and it looks very good. Just curious to know, looking forward, is there anything this committee should be aware of, particularly in terms of the impacts of COVID-19?
So we are having some discussions with the ministry right now about potentially any potential problems with the timing requirements to implement source protection plan policies. One of the big ones is timing around risk management plan policies. Many regions put a 5-year timeline on risk management plan policies, which most plans are coming up on their 5-year anniversary this year sometime. So it puts sort of the pressure on risk management officials to get all of their risk management plans done, and given the current situation, that may be difficult to do. So there's some regions that are working on changing the timeframes of those types of policies. Our region didn't put any time restrictions on risk management plan policies. So we're not in that position, although our committee has been discussing adding some timeframes to that. So certainly they'll take into consideration the current situation, but we don't have a problem with those types of timelines. We're just starting to look at the issue around official plan amendments. So all municipalities with an official plan have to update their official plan to conform with source protection plan policies, and there is a time frame around that one. So it is meant to be done within the cycle, the 5-year cycle of updates. So depending on when the plan was approved and what stage the official plan is and when it's next due to be updated, the timing's a little bit different for each municipality, but I think we do maybe have some issues with that with our municipalities. So we're just starting to have some discussions, and I'm not sure where that will go. We need to take a deeper look at that. But because we didn't put the timeframes on our risk management plan policies like a lot of other committees did, we're not running into any issues from that respect.
Okay, so I guess, Mr. Chair, what I'm looking for then, if there is something that Jenna has to bring to this committee, that we have that on part of our work in our May meeting or subsequent, just so that we're staying on top of this issue. So thanks for the update. Looking at 2019, things look good. Let's hope it continues for 2020.
Good, thank you. Yes, certainly with all these challenges that we're facing right now, if staff have anything that they need to bring back to us, we might anticipate some extra meetings and some extra issues that we're going to have to deal with. So we'll leave it to staff to keep on top of that and get back to us. Anything you want to respond to at all there, Jenna?
No, I'm happy to bring anything back as we move forward with discussions around policy timelines.
Okay, thank you. Next question is from Tony.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. To Jenna, I guess I see that in the Chatham, Kent, and Wheatley areas, there's a concern for the harmful algal blooms, or HABs. I guess what is the breaking point, and are the action items reactive or proactive, and what funding sources are available to deal with those action items as they would be necessary? And secondly, nitrates at the Wallaceburg intake seem to be down, and where in Woodstock they seem to be above normal and leveling off. So what are the variables that cause those differences at those well sites? Thank you.
Sure.
Jenna?
So there are sort of 3 separate issues. In Woodstock, it's a groundwater issue. So they've got nitrates in the groundwater. In Woodstock, there's 2 separate well fields, and they were seeing higher than normal levels of nitrates in both well fields. So nitrates were declared an issue for that the entire Woodstock system. And what happens when you declare an issue is the next step is to identify an issue contributing area. So that is a specific area around the drinking water supply where it's felt that nitrates are contributing to that issue. And then special policy is developed directed at anything that is anything that's producing nitrates or contributing to the problem. So in Woodstock, an issue contributing area was delineated for one well field, but not the other. So it was felt that at the one well field that perhaps the trend in nitrates was starting to decrease, and that maybe identifying this issue contributing area wasn't necessary and developing policy wasn't necessary. The County of Oxford is concerned that that trend may have changed, but they don't have enough data at this point. So what they've indicated to us is that they're planning to undertake sort of a larger review and analysis of the nitrate problem in Woodstock and potentially expand that issue contributing area to include both well fields. So they, as a county, monitor that issue and report on that issue to us annually. The hope is that the policies will lead to a decrease in nitrates and ultimately remove it as an issue for the drinking water system. So that's the Woodstock one. In Wallaceburg, we had a similar type of situation. The nitrate levels that they were seeing at the Wallaceburg intake, which is a surface water system, were seasonal in nature, and that they were seeing it mostly in spring and summer after major rain events. So nitrates were kind of peaking and then leveling off. What their water operating staff has indicated to us is that they're no longer seeing those spikes in nitrates after a rain event. So they're no longer concerned about the issue. So what we're in the process of doing is amending our source protection plan and assessment reports to remove that as an issue altogether. The microcystin issue for our Chatham, South Kent, and Wheatley intakes is a sort of larger problem. So in addition to those two intakes, all of the intakes in the Essex source protection region have also been identified as having a microcystin issue as well. So it's not just those two intakes, it's quite a number of intakes, mostly on the southwestern basin of Lake Erie. So, and it's felt that phosphorus is a real contributor to that problem. The water operators for those systems have a process in place to manage and remove the microcystin at an operational standpoint. So they do that whenever there is a bloom. They feel that they have the adequate response and treatment to be able to remove microcystins. But it's obviously a concern, and blooms fluctuate in nature, but we're still seeing a lot of that. The one problem with that issue is that it's a pretty large issue, and it just doesn't involve those specific systems. So it was felt at the time that identifying an issue contributing area just really wasn't appropriate, because if you try and encompass the entire issue in an area, you're looking at a huge area, potentially our entire watershed as a contributor to that problem. So it was felt that we wouldn't move forward with identifying an issue contributing area, but that we would keep it on our radar, continue to monitor it, but recognize that there's lots of other efforts being undertaken, lots of other groups looking at how to reduce phosphorus and reduce the number of algal blooms. So we don't have any specific funding to look at that issue, but obviously conservation authorities are involved in phosphorus reduction programs. And so we stay involved in that work and look at that on an annual basis through the source protection program. But actively, we're not undertaking any additional work as a source protection authority.
Well, I guess my concern was that it said the system could be overwhelmed. So what is the action plan? Is it a boil water advisory? You know, what happens if the system is overwhelmed? Is there a crisis management protocol, or what do you do?
So our surface water systems are a little bit different from our groundwater systems. They can be shut down quite quickly. And most of all of our surface water systems have adequate amounts of storage that they can rely on if a system needs to be shut down. So I think it's felt that if there was a bloom that was felt to overwhelm the system, then the system would be shut down. They would rely on their reserves until the bloom ceased and they were able to resume activities on it. But obviously the goal is to reduce bloom events.
Okay, thanks. I didn't realize it had that much reserve, but that's good. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Just on that, Jenna, it talks about the shutdown of the water facilities on Peely Island in the United States. Do you know what happened in those cases? Did those systems get overwhelmed, or did they not have the actual technology that our systems have?
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, it's a special treatment process that has to be added in. So if a system had to be shut down because they couldn't manage the bloom event, it was because they didn't have those treatment processes in place yet. So this would have been some time ago. A bloom was found and they didn't have the treatment process in place at the time, so the system needed to be shut down for an extended period of time. But from what I understand now is all Lake Erie intake systems have a treatment process in place now that manages microcystin issues. So most people feel fairly comfortable with their ability to manage a bloom should it happen.
Okay, good, thank you. And of course, that's treatment, which is the last line of defense. The whole idea of the Source Protection Authority is that we are protecting. We want to start at the beginning here, so that's why we'll keep doing the work with the phosphorus reduction. That's good. Any other questions or comments? I don't see any hands up here.
I have a comment, Alan.
Sure, Jim.
Mr.
Go
Chair.
ahead, Jim.
I really appreciate Jenna's work on this file. I mean, I sat on the Source Water Protection Committee for 7 years representing the medical officers of health in the first sort of phase up to 2015, and along with Joe. And so I'm really gratified to see these annual reports coming out and the documentation that's involved, as well as a lot of the processes in place for monitoring and mitigating a lot of the risks to our water system. So I just wanted to say that, and just a lot of great work continuing, a lot more to do, obviously. And there's a lot of partnerships in this whole aspect of Lake Erie hazardous algae blooms. That is certainly an international effort to try and deal with this issue. So just wanted to add those comments.
Good, thank you very much, Joe. I'm not seeing anyone else. So with that, we have the motion that the Source Protection Authority approve the recommendations as presented in the report. No other questions or comments. I'll ask Michelle to do the roll, please.
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
and Alan Dale.
Yes. So that motion is carried. Thank you very much, everyone. And we have nothing for business for information. So that takes us down to item number 6, which is adjournment. So if there's nothing else, motion to adjourn by Anna Marie Murray. You okay with that, Anna Marie?
Yes, I am.
Very good. Thank you very much. All right, we are adjourned, folks. I appreciate it. As I said before, it's takes a little bit longer to do things these days. So thank you for all your patience and understanding. We got through this. Big thank you, of course, to staff. Thanks to Jenna for all the stuff with Source Protection Authority. And thank you to Michelle, who's had to read out the roll I don't know how many times this morning. So big thanks again to Ian and all the staff. And thank you very much. We'll talk to everyone soon. And take care and stay healthy.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Yep, bye.